She stole the apartment from right out under me. So instead of living down in the village, I'm out here on Long Island with, you and Amy Fisher and the rest of the gang.
Stronger than you. When you go down, it's gonna hurt. You ready? You ready to be humiliated in front of your new wife and your father? You are an ugly bitch. I pity you.
You want to explain the math of this to me? I mean, where's the sense in risking the lives of the 8 of us to save one guy?
Oh, hey, guys, hold it. She's not the one. She's not the one.
Actor and independent filmmaker Ed Burns was in Bellmore recently being honored with a Creative Achievement Award by the Long Island International Film Expo. I caught up with Burns before the award ceremony for an exclusive interview.
The reason I'm here is I'm a Long Island guy. I'm from Valley Stream, and when I got the call, it's been a little tricky schedule-wise, but I said, absolutely, I have to get down there. I come back all the time. My folks are 2 towns over in Rockville Center, so I never stop in Bellmore. I'm usually cruising by on Sunrise Highway going to RVC. But it's great to be back, especially given that I'm from here. Brothers McMullen, I shot in my parents' house in Valley Stream, so, that was a big part of it. The inspiration to sit down and write that screenplay had to do with, I never saw films that had to do with, the kind of guys and families that I grew up with. And it's something I always go back to, and I'm actually working on a massive sort of 3-part trilogy about sort of a Long Island childhood that would go from probably 81 through 91. I was up at SUNY Albany, English major, thought I wanted to be a novelist. I just randomly took a sort of film appreciation class, and one of the first films I saw was Billy Wilder's The Apartment. Spoke to the professor afterwards about the film, and he told me, Billy Wilder's a writer-director, and that's kind of when I had the aha moment. I was like, oh, maybe it's not novels. Maybe what I should be writing are screenplays. Immediately did some research on it, and a year later left Albany, went to Hunter College, and started studying filmmaking.
Burns says one of his early influences growing up was actor-director Woody Allen.
I had to credit my mom with that. She turned me on to Woody very early on, to Sleeper and Bananas and Take the Money and Run. And then as I got a little older, I guess in high school, maybe Hannah and Her Sisters, maybe. It's not until I'm in film school, I think I'm going to film school to be a writer. Maybe I'll direct films. The very first class I take, though, the professor had a bunch of the kids act in, you had to act in each other's sort of short films. The first time I got, that was my first time I acted, and I got the bug. So every time since then, I just kept putting myself into my short films. Again, never thinking that I was going to be a writer, director, actor. And then when it was time to do Brothers McMullen a couple of years later, we had no money. We couldn't pay anybody. So I just figured, I'll write a part for myself. That way at least I'm guaranteed that at least that segment of the film will get done. The movie came out and people said, you're pretty good. Next thing I know, I'm getting calls to be an actor.
Burns talked about the challenge of directing a scene while at the same time acting in it himself.
Now so much of the acting choices, let's say, that you'd make, you make them a lot of times in the room when I'm writing the screenplay. But when you're directing actors on set and you're in the scene with them, a lot of actors will tell you, they know when a scene is playing. I've always equated it to sports. When a team gels, everybody on the court knows, oh wait, we're hot right now. It's a very similar thing with actors. You can feel each other when the magic is happening. And that's really how you direct other actors when you're also working with them. That said, I do have a great support team of a producer and a director of photography who, in any of those scenes, someone needs to be watching the monitor to make sure that we're executing the shot the way we want it and that the other actors actually hit their mark and things are in focus. So,
Burns also talked about his experience acting in the film Saving Private Ryan.
I remember the first acting job I had where I didn't get to speak, one of the lines that I had written was in Saving Private Ryan. And it's probably a week into the shoot and we're shooting the D-Day sequence. Right. And there's a scene in the film where we've kind of gotten up the bluff and we have our backs to, I guess where they had some heavy artillery. Right. So all the guys are lined up against the wall, and the scene is supposed to play that I'm supposed to take a grenade, pull the pin, toss it to Tom Sizemore, who's going to catch it and then throw it over our heads in. Stephen calls action, the shot starts, overlooking the bluff, watching all the ships coming in, 3,000 extras, who are the Irish Army, storming the beach, explosions going off. It lands on Hanks, comes all the way over to me, I pull the grenade, I toss it to Sizemore, chuck it right over his head. Stephen says, cut, and he says, look, just so you know, that just cost more than your first film cost. So.
Burns says it's much easier today for aspiring filmmakers to create quality independent films than it was when he first started.
The entire independent film landscape has changed in the last, I'd say, 3-4 years. Two great revolutionary things have happened that have to do with sort of digital technology. One are the new cameras. You know, we shot a film called Nice Guy Johnny on the Red. We made a film last year called Newlyweds on the Canon 5D. Which is a $2,500 camera. That's the camera that levels the playing field. Any kid can either borrow or buy one of those and go out and shoot a feature film. You now also, the editing systems are so sophisticated. You know, we cut all our things on a Mac. We use Final Cut on a Mac in an apartment. You no longer have to edit. You no longer have to rent out an editing suite and all of that sophisticated equipment. So now it's cheaper, it's easier to make films, but also the films look much better than they did back in '95 when I made McMullen and you're shooting on 16mm film. The other thing that's happened is now audiences, there isn't the stigma attached to, let's say, a straight-to-DVD title. Because so many of these movies are starting to forego a theatrical release because there's a number of factors. You know, art house theaters are closing all over the country. The audience is now used to seeing a certain type of programming in their living room on a giant flat screen TV with surround sound. I mean, a big thing that people think that has changed viewing habits is what HBO's done. You think about Sopranos, Entourage, Sex and the City, you know, Boardwalk Empire. Those are as good as any movies that come out.
It's the writing. Yeah.
So why would you leave your living room to go down to the art house when the art house is already in your living room? And that's why we decided on the last couple of films, you know, it costs too much money, first of all, to try and compete in the marketplace theatrically. So if you pipe it directly to where the audience actually is, we found that we make a lot more money than we ever could have made theatrically.
Does iTunes pick the price? Or do you?
I think the future for Long Island filmmaking, especially on the indie side, is the same as the future for indie filmmaking anywhere in the country or for the world, that matter. It really has to do with, you know, is there a kid out there who picks up one of these very inexpensive cameras now and has something very interesting or specific or funny to say, and they have the passion and the wherewithal to actually get the thing done, and then after that, they fight tooth and nail in order to make sure it finds an audience. And that really is, that is the name of the game. You know, like I said before, the playing field has been completely leveled. There's nobody who is going to, there's no longer an excuse for saying, oh, I can't get in, I can't get into the business, I don't have any connections. You don't need them anymore. You can make your movie, put it up on YouTube, and, you know, now you're a filmmaker. How you get people to see it on YouTube, well, that's another story. But that did not exist in '95 when I was starting, so, yeah.
In Bellmore, Collora reporting.
Every time, like, people say, hey, we dig your stuff.